What is going on, everyone, and welcome back along to your home of rugby here on New Zealand Sport Radio. And with me, Cornflake, we are bringing you once again that time of the week. It is Super Rugby preview time, and we're going to have a look at our four matches coming out of Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Aotearoa this weekend. Round 10 and round 9, respectively. We've got big games coming up, and we are going to be having a look at them once again, like we always do, with a special guest. It's no Shane this week. He's got prior engagements. He's too important for us this weekend. So instead, we've ringed in the changes. Paul is back again. Welcome back. The main man, hello. He's back on the channel. How you going, sir?
Back on the channel. I'm on the channel every day.
back on the preview. Back on my channel. This goes on my channel too. So you're back on my channel. Welcome back. It's been a long time.
Thank you so much.
Couple of weeks.
The green grass of home, eh?
Lovely. The backdrop. You see things improve here on the preview show. We've got nice backdrops. We've got support to the Highlanders. Everything's good and well in the world. But yes, 4 games this week, Paul. We start things off with, of course, Friday nights, just over a day away. The Chiefs and the Hurricanes do battle in our weekend opener. Then we have the Force and the Reds, and then a double header almost from Australia before we go back to this side of the ditch. The Waratahs and the Rebels do battle on Saturday evening, and then on Sunday, the worst day for me to watch rugby is the Crusaders and the Blues. So let's get straight into the action. Why not? We've got a lot to look at. So here we go. Game number 1, Chiefs versus the Hurricanes. Now, tell me what, Paul. I mean, let's unearth this massive change of New Zealand rugby landscape. What happened to the Chiefs? Just don't mind the Hurricanes at the moment. Where have this Chiefs team come from? They have just, they are the best team in the competition right now in Super Rugby Aotearoa.
Wow, the best team in the competition? Whoa. Yeah, I guess, I mean, look, yeah.
Behind the Highlanders.
I'm always behind the Highlanders. Look, it's a lot of talk during the off-season was about culture, right? And basically that whilst McMillan didn't say it's, Clayton didn't say it quite outright, but basically that Colin Cooper had screwed up the culture of the Chiefs in his tenure there, and that it needed fixing. So, look, he's spent a lot of time about that. I mean, a lot of the talk recently has been about culture and about playing for your mates. Hopefully, I mean, I'm going to be at the game on Friday, and hopefully I'm going to try and organise a chat with him at some point to ask him what does he mean by culture. But yeah, I think there hasn't been that togetherness of the team about playing for each other and going that extra yard, with that extra 1%, all those the half percenters and all that kind of stuff. I think that's been what the difference has been. Actually, is also Dave McKenzie. Look, back in form. Brad Webber in the post press conference, the last one said the last game said, look, he's been so Dave McKenzie had been injured. Serious injury, off for a year. Look, it takes a year to get back to your best, and so hence he thought that we all had too much expectations of him last year, and that now he's got confidence back in his body and he's playing well. So you had a Dave McKenzie that's playing well, and a team that all actually want to give that extra 1% for their brothers, you end up actually winning some games, surprisingly.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting that W at the end of the day. But just to show off that Chiefs team, we always talk about the key areas. I mean, you've got a good 9, you've got a good 15. They kind of have skipped out the fact of needing a really, really good number 10, haven't they? And they're kind of playing around the fact of McKenzie covers so much of that team with his adaptability in that side. I think they don't have a world-class guy that they rely on. And I mean, even, this week, we'll get to the team in a second, but Bryn Gatlin coming in there, that number 10 jumper, not a world beater, solid enough player, but you'll find a lot of that play will revolve around those 2 guys you mentioned. That you can't emphasize that enough, and Weber and McKenzie.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you don't need to, not everybody in the back line has to be world beaters and something special, right? You need a couple of guys who just do the basics well and let the other guys play around them. Now, Trask is a bit more flashy than Gatland, to be honest. Look, they've got decent guys. I mean, it's not like we've been talking about like down in the Hurricanes where fly half. What's one of those things? Do we really need one? Do we need a guy at 10? I'm not sure. Let's just put a tackler in there because hey, it's not really necessary, is it, to have a real player there? Look, they've got guys who are proper 10s. available that you can play around. Sure, they're not the most experienced. They're not All Blacks, but they're decent 10s who know the way around the pitch.
And that's what's key. Let's have a look at those two sides for the teams, the Chiefs and the Hurricanes for the home team. And that's going to be key as well, playing in front of that crowd that they will have there for the home fans. Aiden Ross starts the number 1 jumper. Samasoni Takiaho, who is getting huge raps this season. Boy, he is getting some massive props to his name. He partners alongside Angus Tarval to complete that front row. Probably it's an area the Chiefs have really struggled with. They've got 2 gems and young gems in Tupuvai and Natoa Akoi in that second row. Mitch Brown, Lachlan Boshier, and Peter Gusto Akula comes in to that back row, the big number 8. So they will add a lot more power to that team. Into that back line, Brad Webber, we've talked about. Bryn Gatlin will partner in those halves. Alex Nankivore, 12. Anton Brown, sensational season from him this year as well. Where's 13? Atini Nanai Saturo, the left wing. Jonah Lowe. Not Rowe, he's not in a boat. He's on the right, and Mackenzie, of course, the man we've talked about at fullback. Up against them, and deserve a little bit of mention as well, these Hurricanes, and how this game's going to go is going to be dependent on these guys with work to do. Xavier Numia starts in the number 1 with Dame Coles wearing the captain's armband this week for the Canes. Tyrell Lomax will be alongside him in 3. James Blackwell and Scott Scrafton. Such a contrast in those 2 second rows, isn't there, between the up-and-coming exciting and the 2 journeymen in Blackwell and Scrafton for the Hurricanes. Prince Ed Karifi and Flanders round out their pack. Luke Campbell and Ruben Love. There's some youthful names there at 9 and 10. We talked about it before already, haven't we, Paul? Those guys, how will they affect this game will be interesting to see. Lamapi and Umanga Jensen in the midfield. Salisi Reyes, he's on the left wing. He's back in the team. Wes Houston's on the right wing. And Geordie Barrett at fullback. I mean, you look at that and it doesn't fill you with much confidence, does it, at those 9 and 10s there. But I mean, much like the Chiefs, Geordie Barrett, with a 15, he controls the side so much from the back. And it's coming a common trend now. I think those guys are starting to learn, the guys like Barrett and McKenzie's, how to play that role of a team playmaker and controller and a conductor, I guess they call it as well, from that number 15 jumper position, rather than having to be up there always in that back line at that first receiver every single time. They've adapted and moving with the game, aren't they? Those 2 guys especially, I think.
Absolutely. Look, this is something that the All Blacks have been criticised for, is that second playmaker. And here you've got 2 guys who have been basically being taught that for the past 3, maybe 4 years now, as part of the All Blacks setup. Basically since the last Lions tour. And we're seeing the fruit of it now, where they're actually managing, as you say, they can control the game from 15. You don't need a Richie Mwang or a Bowden Barrett in that 10 jersey. You can do it by at the back there. And look, I mean, starting on that Hurricanes team, I think the way that they looked after Ruben Love last weekend against the Crusaders was very good. Early in the game, Geordie Barrett took ownership of that first receiver role and gave Ruben Love time to settle into the game. And then Ruben Love took over more of that first receiver towards in the second half and later in the first half. So if you looked at the passing stats, he hardly touched the ball. It was all Geordie early on, but it evened itself out by the end of the game. So look, they looked after him really, really well. But at the end of the day, for this Hurricane squad, it comes down to the name that's not there rather than the names that are there. And that is Artie Surveyor. They're missing their captain. They're missing their best player by a country mile. And without him, that loose trio of Princep, Karifi and Flanders, they're all decent players. But but missing that general, that guy who really does give them energy and lead them, you've got to be worried about them, really. And then again, you look at their bench as well. And look, the front row replacement's decent, okay for the forwards. Then you look at the backs and go, who? And Billy Proctor, I'm looking at those guys and going, who are they? I've got a clue. And I watch a lot of rugby.
Yeah, that's a bit of a danger. I was just looking at them too. I mean, you mentioned the bench, and I just thought to myself, what's happened to Vaya Fafita? Remember him a few years ago, and he's there in 20, but you would say, I don't know how many years ago it would be now, 3-4 years ago, he was a guy who you could say would be up there with the sort of power and presence he brings to a team that could bring something similar, not to the level of an Artie Savia right now, but the way he can play the game and carry the ball. It's something that they certainly would like if they had him at that sort of same level, but he's not that same sort of player that we've seen from him in the past, which is a real concern for a guy that, has had a number of tests in an All Blacks jumper as well. So they need back a bit more of him, don't they?
They do, yeah, look, he's been messed around. Mate. He did a really good podcast with Aotearoa. His English is very clearly his second language. Look, he wasn't. You're not going to hear him in the press ever because he just won't feel comfortable. But with the friendly presence of Aotearoa, it was a really interesting chat from him. But he's been messed around by the Hurricanes, right? They played him as a lock. They've played him as a sorry.
Come play for the Highlanders, via. Come on.
He's been messed around by the Hurricanes, trying to convert him into a lock, and then no, go back to being a six, and I think that's damaged his form and it's knocked his confidence. I think he's probably one of those guys. He's probably a confidence player. You're useless. Prove me wrong. I think he's a guy you put your arm around and say, look, you're wonderful. We really love how you play. Go out and do this kind of person. And I don't think he's got. I think they've probably mismanaged him and confused him too much by trying to get him to play roles that just he isn't suited for, unfortunately.
Yeah. The lock situation, yeah, you said that was a shocker. He was never the same sort of player after that sort of jimmy moving around they did for them. So Chiefs at home, Hurricanes on the road. Where's your money going on this one? The mighty $3, Paul. Where's the mighty $3
there's a whole
going?
bunch of stuff you've missed out on for the Chiefs. So
we'll go back to your Chiefs then.
So let's say
your team.
Big loss there for my team. Big loss there for with Aotearoa for the Hurricanes, but then for the Chiefs, no Luke Jacobson. Massive loss for them. He's been great at 8 for them. Concussion issues at the weekend. Hopefully he'll be all right coming out. But I think Soakula can do a job. But I think you're missing Sam Cane and Luke Jacobson now. Your two captains again. So again, that Mitch Brown, Boshier, Soakula, a decent one. But again, both sides missing the heartbeat of their team, of their Lucies, of the breakdown battle there, which is going to be big. Clearly. Last weekend, they went for Damien McKenzie at 10 with Bryn Gatland coming off the bench to sort of see things home. This weekend, it's Bryn Gatland, a steady start, and then we're going to go helter-skelter at the end by putting Damien McKenzie into the 10 slot. It's an interesting tactical switch as to how do you want to close out the game. I think is to me, that's really interesting. Oh dear, another name I've got no idea how to say, to be honest with you, but Ramika Poihipi. Apparently from down in Christchurch, is a Canterbury player. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays on debut in the centres there, because again, coming off the bench for the centres anyway. Because again, look, they've with Quintapaya out for basically the rest of the season or the Super Rugby season anyway. We've got some rookies or some very low captain players. I mean, you look at that bench, okay, the front row of Harris, Norris, Maffiello, fine. But then Finau with 4 caps, Kalen Bashir with 3 caps, Chase Tier for what's got the Hurricanes. But yeah, and then Poya Hippie, the rookie there on debut. There's a lot of inexperience off both benches, which is going to be interesting to see how that all plans out.
To be honest with you, I don't see Jacobson as big as a loss to the Chiefs as Savia is to the Hurricanes. That's a massive loss.
I think it's a big loss.
They've still got a pretty, it's so cool. It's pretty solid number 8. I think they're going to lose a bit in the mobility of that back row. But I think Lachlan Boshier is playing really good rugby. Mitch Brown is like you say, those solid guys that do no wrong that every rugby team needs, especially in that second row or that back row of any side. Good player, a game breaker player, does get in the right place at the right time. Very good, smart rugby player. But I just think this Hurricanes team seems a bit soulless without a player like Savia to put the heartbeat around that field. And it puts a lot of pressure, I think, on Dane Coles, who's going to be leading the team, that number 2 jumper, because a lot of people look to him and how much, the problem I see with Dane Coles, especially in a responsibility role with the team, is his mental state. He is a guy that people can get under. Is that something that Chiefs are going to think about? Has he cooled his heels a little bit over the last year or two, with all the injuries and layoff times? What sort of player is he going to be now with that massive responsibility? Because you look at the rest of that team, there's not many leaders, especially in that pack. There's a lot of journeyman guys that have been around for a while, but guys that are going to stand up and drag a team from, a 13, 14, 15-point deficit at halftime to turn that side around. It's going to be really interesting if it goes that way. So we will see. But anything else you want to add, or are we going predictions now? Straight in.
Just very quickly,
Yes.
I look at that Chiefs pack and go again. All good players, no leaders. And that's what Luke Jacobson gives you. Luke Jacobson's an ex-under-20s or junior All Blacks captain, and that's what they're listing. That's what they're going to miss. Is that there are no. I think Vi is actually quite a good is learning to be, but I think apart from that, you're looking at a side that you're looking at. I mean, do you see Angus Arvo as your most experienced leadership? Look, no. I think he's fantastic on social media and takes a good photo and talks well. But so both packs lack leadership. Of course, Ida Surveyor is a bigger loss, but that's me. So look, how can you not go with the Chiefs? They've won 4 on the bounce. I'm going by 3 because I just think every single game has the largest winning margin over the past 2 weeks has been 3 points. So that's a big win in today's terms.
Jeez, you put me on the spot here. I was going to go a bit larger than that, but I think I'll still stick with it. Chiefs by just 6 points, which isn't very much by anyone's standards. But we'll go mighty, we'll go large, we'll go exciting to the end, where we could possibly see Jordie Barrett, thinking about a conversion and extra time to win the game from, who knows how far out he'll take that one. But still, interesting. Jordie Barrett, penalties as well. You always got to mention it. He's going to kick him from anywhere too. So accumulation of points for the Hurricanes is going to be something that will certainly be on the top of their mind. Let's move on though. We'll be here till the midnight, Paul, the way we're going. Goodness me. Let's go to Australia. This will be quick. Force versus the Reds. Come on now. Force. I need a Force shirt. Where's the Force women, media people? We need to send me some Western Force merch so I can get in support. I'll do a halftime change the shirt, going through the teams, have a teams to support. But yes, the Force won again. They won again, Paul. Don't worry about who they play again. We'll ignore your side of the Reds over there. Won't talk about them. But the Western Force are winning rugby games. Let's take a moment, because I missed last week, because I had no power. These days, to not have power is ludicrous, but we won't talk about that. The Western Force winning games. Your thoughts? I'm ecstatic.
I'm definitely not. I'm not ecstatic like you are. That's for certain. Look, it's good, right? It's just like we've had upsets and very close games in Super Rugby Aotearoa. It's great to see the Force, who I think everyone was predicting would come last in this tournament pre-season, doing well. Upsetting some teams and look in with a shout of making the finals, which is fantastic. So I think they've got a great shout of making the finals personally. Now, are they going to get there under their own steam? Now, I think they might need some help. But look, it's great to see them mixing it up. Sure, you've got basically the Reds and the Brumbies at the top, and everyone else is pretty much struggling. But look, it's when they get the players like Rob Kearney, who's come back. To give them a bit of leadership in that back line. Now they've got their Argentinians playing and starting in Cabelli and Miotti. Look, they're starting to actually have some combinations, have some quality players on there, look, they can they can play some decent rugby. But world beaters or painting the town red, no. Or
paint the town blue. Come on, paint the town blue, sky blue. Yes, so the sea of blue. That's what it is. You get them behind them. Come on. A Force jersey would be great. Add it to the collection of jerseys over there, and they can all be nicely on show. Maybe one day, like Paul.
Yeah, exactly. Get coat hangers.
Right. The teams, because there's interesting selections in here. Some players to talk about for the Force. Tom Robinson, Fileti Kaitu'u, always struggled with that one. Greg Holmes, Jeremy Thrush, Siliki Tamani in the middle of the pack. Tamansi, fantastic player. Kane Koteka at 7, and Bernard Stander is back at number 8 for the Force. Their backline, like Paul's mentioned, Thomas Kubeli, Domingo Miotti at 9 and 10. Kyle Godwin, captains from inside centre with Tavita Kurandrani at 13. Jordan Olawafella, someone I would like to mention about how fantastic of an impact he had in the last match. Some things not so great, other things superb, but the ability, like we talk about so often, as an X-Factor player that can make something happen. He certainly looks like he has that about him. And on the other wing, Tony Pulu, another player very similar. And like you say, Paul, Rob Kearney at the back for the Force is certainly going to add that responsibility in that 15 jumper.
Sorry, just before you go on to the Reds, I've just pronunciation thing for you. It's not Timani, it's Timani. That's how you got to go.
No. It's a good thing that the Brumbies aren't playing. Oh, because I'm not going to get that into it. Oh, geez, that was shocking. Australian accents should never be done on this channel ever again. Your pronunciations are normally, okay, but geez, okay. Let's move on to the Reds. Oh, goodness gracious me. Starting for the Reds, up against the Force, we've got Fatuakai. Get it right. You've thrown me completely off now. Brendan Paenga-Mosa, he's at hooker. Taliana Tupou at tight head. Angus Scott-Young and Lukan Salakai-Loto in the second row. Liam Wright is back. He's starting at 6. Fraser McWright at 7. And Harry Wilson completes the pack. Tate McDermott, James O'Connor. He's been in the media a lot, hasn't he, James O'Connor? He is the superstar of Australian rugby at the moment. Hamish Stewart, Hunter Paisami in midfield. Filippo Dalgunu on the left wing. Jordan Patai, the right. Bryce Hegarty at fullback. Dissect that. Force, a minimal chance here, but this Reds team, they look fantastic, don't they? The team consistent. I think what I've found with this Red side, not too many changes, no wholesale changes where they're completely mixing things up, and they're keeping things fairly consistent, which is nice to see. And Liam Wright's back, which is great to see that man back in the side. Yes, I like it.
Look, it is good. I think the big thing here for the Reds is, look, they've already booked the final, right? So I think a lot of people would be thinking, look, last round of the tournament, they've already booked themselves a home final. Will they actually be? Will they actually be select a full team? Will they actually be going for it? And I think because there's that preliminary final, that week off in between the end of the season and the actual final, that they have done. They've gone full guns blazing. They've taken a first choice team, and I don't think they're going to. And they're looking to have that the perfect season by winning all their games. So, look, they could have been some early money on the Force early week, thinking that perhaps the Reds would leave some players out, but they haven't done. And it doesn't surprise me, to be honest, because that week off. And look, the steamroller is going to. Well, actually, no, they're not. No, the Brumbies are the steamroller. No. It's just these guys are more the Rapier or the two-seated sports car, aren't they? Really, the nimble, exciting play that we're going to get from this Reds team. So look, it's whilst I'd rather see Paisami as 12-13. Look, it's been working this way round with that basically 3 playmakers in James O'Connor, Hamish Stewart, and Bryce Hegarty. They got lots of options to kick. But also outside those 3, I mean, that's with your Dongunus, your Patayas, Pasamis, you've got some real pace and elusive talent. So so I'm excited to see. I'm always excited to watch the Reds, and you've got to say the Force have to try and be better than do a better version of the Rebels than the Rebels can do, because they're going to need. Look, they just need to shut them down defensively and take every single point on offer for the Force, for my mind. Have a hope.
We quite often talk with Shane about this Reds team, about with their playmaking option and the Paisami Pattaya sort of situation. I like this with Hamish Stewart, because it adds so much difference to the team, and in the way that they play. I find with the Paisami and Pattaya combination, they become a little bit too much predictable as what they're going to do. Although Pattaya is a better player in that midfield, with those options of players moving around and keeping things fresh and different, it gives them a bit more of an attacking threat when they can find a player like James O'Connor on the outside channels with the outside backs. Gives them a little bit more freedom to play that open game that he does actually like to play, which makes the team, I think, a bit more less predictable, a bit more exciting, and a bit more open to that roaming style that a player like O'Connor does actually like to play. So I'm a fan of it, but Pattaya and many other teams would be much better in that midfield. And of course, Paisami's just coming back for that little injury as well. So it's good to see him straight back into that team. But the Force, though, we've got to mention a little bit more about the Force. You spoke about those Argentinians. How fantastic are those? I'd have to put on the Jaguares shirt now if we keep going on like this. But Thomas Cabelli, the hero of Perth, after what he did last weekend, winning that game right at the death. like we spoke, all of the fellow I spoke about before, really good, exciting little player. I think it's going to benefit them very, very much. But those two guys at 9 and 10, massive. And then what they can bring off the bench, Santiago Medrano is a man certainly up there with some of the best in that front row. And the impact of like a Fergus Lee Warner as well can certainly lift the team nicely up as well. So that's me for the Western Force. I like what I see from this team. But personally, it's going to take tough result for them to actually come away with a win, to actually push through and overturn the Reds would probably be one of the biggest upsets of this competition, I think, so far. But yeah, defensively, that's where they've got to be massive on this one.
Yeah, and you got to like the balance of this Force side now, more so than previously when you had Richard Kahui on the wing. Look, has been a wonderful player, but look, he hasn't got the pace anymore. Impulu and Oliveira, look, they've got two players there who, as you say, have got pace and trickery. And yeah, I do prefer that sort of balance that they've got there. And that Cabelli-Miotti combo is good. So look, yeah, I think the Force have definitely grown and improved over the 10 weeks, and that's great. And that's all you can really ask for, to be honest.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we talked about at the start of the season about how the Force were the team that brought in all these cool players, but they didn't gel, or they haven't had time to gel. But now with Miotti and Kubeli, they're bringing in guys that actually have that combination established. They know how each other are playing, so it actually adds without adding, if that makes sense, so without requiring the time to boost them together. So that is going to be, well, it already has been key for them, but it should really see them well in that 9 and 10. So we go up for an upset, Paul. You're bringing on the Sea of Blue to come home with the W this weekend? Confidence?
Not hope. No, Reds by 7.
Yeah, Reds will pick up the win. 7 points, I think we'll go by 11. Personally, myself, big win for the Reds. Too good second half. They will clean up. But I do agree with that comment in there saying about the Reds, the big threat in the Trans-Tasman competition, which I hope does go into, actually does happen, barring anything bad happen, because the Highlanders are at home against the Reds, and I'm waiting to make sure things go nicely because I will be at that game. I cannot wait. Hopefully things go well. I can't wait to see the Reds. But let's move on. Game number 3. We're staying in Australia. Waratahs and the Rebels. So thoughts on the Waratahs, Paul? I think how many previews and reviews and post-game reactions have we done over the years? And the Waratahs, I mean, I feel like a broken record saying how they're just like headless chickens. They've kind of lost the headless chickens now. They just, I don't know. They've just completely lost track. It's like they couldn't get any worse, but they are getting better. Okay, let's talk about positive then. They have improved, haven't they, in the last couple of weeks? They've pushed teams. They're scoring points now, and they're actually in matches, which is something we couldn't say in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of this competition.
No, absolutely. Look, I thought that dropping Rod Penny was unfair, but look, it's worked, right? In their last 2 games, they've I think it's 2 points and 1 point, or 3 points and 1 point would be the margins. Yeah, 2 points and 1 point up against the Brumbies and the Force. So look, they've been close in the last 2 games, and look, unfortunately, they've lost Will Harrison, but even though they did lose him, they still played. They still got close last weekend. So yeah, something's happened. So that's improved. There's improved, I guess, probably the culture, or the I've been saying too much recently, but the mood off the pitch. And look, they're really just going for it, which is nice to see. There's still a bunch of young guys who don't have the experience at this level, which is why you're seeing them lose these sort of 2 and 1 point games. They don't know how to get over the line and how to close out a game, unfortunately, for them. But it's they're much improved, and I reckon actually, well, I think they could be the thing that helps the Force.
The thing that helps the Force, what, not get last? Oh, I see, to make the playoffs. Oh, well, that's exciting. Okay, we'll save that for the end of this little piece. But let's go and look at the 2 teams for this one. The Waratahs, I think, for one of the few teams, or few times for any team this season, have named an unchanged side. So if we had a little recording of me doing it, I didn't do it last week. We could have just played that. But anyway, Angus Bell will start number 1. Dave Parecki will be at hooker. Harry Johnson-Holmes at tight head in the second row. Hugh Sinclair and Max Douglas. Lockie Swinton, Carlo Tizzano, amazing superstar they've unearthed this year is Tizzano. He's at 7 again, and Will Harris at number 8. Jake Gordon captains at scrum half, and Ben Donaldson, he is the replacement, of course, to Will Harrison. And let's be honest, played fairly responsibly and well in his appearance last weekend as well. So that's promising for them with another young 10 coming through those ranks. In the midfield, Lalakai Fekete and Isaiah Parisi at 12 and 13. James Ram on the left wing, Alex Newsom the right side, and Jack Maddox continues on his role at fullback. Up against them for the Rebels, Cameron Orr, Jordan Ulisi and Korba Seloff are their front row. Rob Leota and Ross Haylett-Petty in the second row. Michael Wells, Brad Wilkin and Isi Naisorani. Yes, he's back, and he is starting this week in the number 8 jumper. Joey Powell and Matt Samua are the halves combination with Campbell Magnay and Stacey Ely. I'm sure Stephen Harris would have a lot to say about if he was ever on the show, his performances in that Rebels jumper. On the left wing, Marika Korombeti. On the right side, Frank Lamani, the number 9, turned into what's becoming a bit of a superstar on the right wing for the Rebels, and Tom Pincus at the back. It's a bit makeshift, isn't it, what they've done with that Rebels team? But, I mean, guys that you'd look at, and like Stacey Ely, I say it every week on the show, he's just does things right. He just doesn't do anything too over the top. He just does his job. He does it nice enough. He kicks fairly well only when he has to. He doesn't drop the ball. He catches. He takes tackles. He puts the ball freely to be carried on with. He's just a tidy little player. And from a guy you look at and go, well, he'll be gone by week 2 or 3. He is the mainstay in that Rebels backline. I think he is a key man if they're going to actually progress in that battle for that 3rd spot this season. But Naisarani, he's back. He's back at number 8. Massive player. We talked about Ali Salvia before, didn't we, Paul? He's that sort of guy for the Melbourne Rebels, isn't he?
Yeah, it's definitely the ball carrying and destructiveness. Look, on paper, this team should beat the Tars quite comfortably. The problem is they're playing less than some of their parts.
Oh, right? I was going to say we're on grass.
Yeah, we're on grass, not on paper. Yeah, look, Koroibete, the most dangerous player in Australian rugby, hasn't scored a try this year. So you kind of like, look, this Rebels team just doesn't, isn't clicking. It's just not working for them. They just don't. Up against the side, I think if anything, the Rebels have gone backwards this season, whereas the Tars are going forwards, and that to me, I think is what could be the difference here. Is that the Tars have actually got some positive. Sure, they've lost a lot. They've lost all their games, but they've got close in the last 2. The Rebels are on a run now with 3 losses, yes, I can see them just going south personally.
We talked about at the start of the season this Rebels team, and we're quite far off the mark at that stage, but probably hitting it a bit more. But how much Matt Tamua affects how this team plays? A guy that has got to be an ever-present person has not been very ever-present so much for the Rebels team as when they are being successful and winning and doing everything perfectly and getting the results they want. But I think the biggest change this team has had from those first couple of weeks where, well, they bide round 1, where they actually pushed the teams like the Reds and the Brumbies, and we were like, whoa, this team's not supposed to be playing this well. Defence, and they didn't score a try for about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. They just got all their points by kicks. They get that scoreboard pressure, and they were up there, but they relied on that defence. That concentration and determination and focus on that defence seems to have gone by the wayward now of the pressure of scoring points with the team through the 5-pointers and the 7s. That's changed how the team's played, and I agree. As a result, they've slipped off. They've kind of gone backwards, and it's an opportunity for this Waratahs side to actually turn things around and pick up the W, but I can't see myself putting anything on this Waratahs team to pick up any sort of result. But yeah, it's really changed. The whole style of this team has changed massively, and they're just not playing that same sort of game-winning rugby that we saw them at the first few weeks. So that is, I think, the biggest interesting thing about this Rebels side going into this next round. Probably because
they say game-winning rugby, but they weren't getting the wins. That was the problem, wasn't it? And sides now know, as long as we don't give up penalties in our own half, we're going to win this game because they're not scoring tries, right? All they'll do is just defend. They will give us the ball at some point. Just don't give up a penalty, guys. Stay on side. Don't get off your feet at the breakdown, and we'll win this game, because they can't score. They can't get the ball to anyone dangerous. Just fan out, and eventually they'll drop the ball, and we'll get it. Thank you. And that's the problem. They were too one-dimensional early on. People have figured that out, and they've got nothing else. Essentially, they should do though. But the problem is Matsuno isn't a fly half. He's a 12.
Yeah, we're starting that conversation again, aren't we? Going into that one. Yeah, we'll avoid that, or else we'll be here for another 3 hours. But yeah, you're not wrong. But when he's on, he's on, and when he is on, he's good. He can control a game, but he's a guy that takes on the field too. He takes on defensive lines. And I think he's a bit like Dan Carter was a bit like that too. When he was running at the line and creating space, he was more of a player than he was when he was just shoveling on. We're going back to the early days, or earlier days of New Zealand rugby here, Paul. Bringing a real legend into the game. But yeah, when you knew Dan Carter was playing at the peak of his powers, he was at the line and he was causing defenders to watch him rather than watch where he's passing. Matsumo was a similar sort of player, nowhere near the caliber, let's be honest, but the same sort of guy. When you know he's going at the line, when you know he's taking on defenders, that's when you know he's playing well. And I think that's what the Rebels really been missing from him, probably since those first few rounds of the competition. But where we're going, I sense you're going to go for a Waratahs upset. So let's go. Bring on the force.
Waratahs by 1 for me.
Oh, I'm going offset. I was thinking about it. I was like, no, I can't do it. I've got to go Rebels by 1. Rebels to bring it home. They're going to score some tries. Coravitti's going to actually play some good rugby and score some tries this weekend, and they're going to completely turn the game around. Okay.
I've got the Tars at over $3 at the TAB.
Wow.
So there we go.
Well, what you need to do is wait till the Rebels are leading about 10-0, and it'll be about $8 for a Waratahs win. That's when you jump on it. But yeah, this could go either way. It's a head and heart one, I think, personally. I think the Waratahs, like you say, they're on the up where the Rebels are on the down. So where she falls, we'll see on Saturday evening. Make sure you watch.
I've got the Tars at $3.15. So, yep.
He's going to return a mighty $9.
$9.45. That's right.
Every cent matters. Right. Here we go. This is what I really wanted to talk to you about. Oh, the Crusaders and the Blues. I mean, these are the glory boys. What, 4 or 5 weeks ago? It was all about, who was going to win the final between the Crusaders and the Blues. Now, the Crusaders have lost to everyone except for the Blues in the last year, whereas the Blues seem to be falling down a slippery slope themselves, losing to the might of the Highlanders under the massive roof in Dunedin. So it was all a great week last weekend. But where do we start? I mean, we'll start with your Blues, since they're your side as well. Probably not falling down the massive calamity that the Crusaders seem to be, but a bit of disharmony, a bit of a question seems to be going around this blue side. I know in the chat we have during the week about the rugby over the weekend, you guys, your blue supporters, yourself, Ashwin and Stephen, that a lot of talk about things and problems going on with this Blues team.
Oh, look, it's more them than me, but just the
yes.
to be fair, but look, it's just the lack of rugby intelligence from this team is what really upsets a lot of Blues fans. And the imbalance of that back row. They got when you play Akiriwani, and I've gone absolutely blank as the number 8.
Tutu.
Thank you. Then you've got players who, great carriers, but then you're putting an awful lot of work on Dalton Papialihi at the breakdown, whilst Akiriwani's work rate has improved, he still has a bit more to go, I think. Really, that's not his key strength, and they sort of lack that work rate, and then they become very one-dimensional, trying to bash it through. And if you stand up to the Blues, then you've got a good chance. Now the Blues against the Highlanders, look, they weren't playing particularly well, but they were still in the game towards the end, because they do hurt you. They are big ball carriers. They're going to stay in a game. The problem with it is it's that they don't have the nous to actually win the game at the moment, and that's what they're really lacking, I feel.
It's interesting, this match. We probably talked about it a few weeks ago. it would be cut and dry. Well, I would anyway, saying the Crusaders just going to steamroll this one just like they always do, especially the fact that it's at home. I think the Blues' biggest chance over the last couple of years is the fact if they play at Eden Park, they've got their home crowd support. There's a massive possibility they can pull this one off. But the Crusaders, well, what's happened there? I mean, they've lost to the Highlanders. They've lost to the Chiefs. They almost lost to the Hurricanes. Could things get worse and the boys from up in the big smoke come to their house and complete four sides, toppling them in one season? It's almost unthinkable at the start of the year we'll be saying this, but we're almost at the point, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, the Crusaders are on a 13-game winning streak over the Blues at the moment. So, look, it's the closest has been a 2-point margin back in 2019 when it was 22-24.
But weren't they on the 13-game winning streak against every New Zealand Super Rugby team? Let's be honest, apart from the Hurricanes last season, they've beaten everyone for quite a number of time.
Yeah. So look, the problem for the Crusaders is injuries, right? They just lost so many players. They've lost Moody up front. They've lost Christie and who else in the Lucies? They've also, they've lost Braden Enor and Goodhue in the centres. And so essentially, what you're playing at the moment is a pack that doesn't have the same number of leaders it used to have. Obviously, a halves combination, and then a bunch of outside backs, because they're not playing with any centres at the moment, which is a real problem for basically for their shape and their structures. It's Havili is a 15. Let's be honest. Yes, he can do a job at 10 and he can do a job at 12, but he's a 15. Lester Fainanuku is very much a winger. He is not a 13. And they always say, look, 13 is the hardest channel to defend. And if you're going to put a guy in there like that, look, he's done well. Let's be blunt for considering what his background is. But there's a difference between doing well and actually being dominant. And that's the difference, is that centre combination there isn't making the most of Bridge, Reese, gone blank as the fullback. But anyway, Will Jordan. Look, you've got three devastating runners out there in the back three that basically aren't being used at the moment, because it's just not getting through those through those centres out to them, because they're just not used to. They're not distributors. They're not used to distributing the ball a lot. If you're going to take away that counter-attacking piece of with that the offloads that Jack Goodhue gives you, keeping that the old the new acronym that's coming out of Ronan O'Gara, KBA, keep the ball alive. Where's he picked that up from? He's picked that up from the Crusaders, where he was there. So that's clearly a Crusaders thing. Keep the ball alive. Don't get stuck. Don't let it get stuck in rucks. Keep it alive, boys. But unfortunately, when you got they're missing that Jack Goodhue, Braden Enor combo in there that keeps that ball alive.
It does indeed. Yep, it's a massive problem for them, isn't it? It's all the talent on the outside. No one's get it through that side. But I think that the pack as well has also started to struggle a little bit. You mentioned the losses they got in that back row, but their scrum not as dominant. You see some teams, like we saw the Chiefs last weekend, actually get a couple of scrums where they were the dominant side moving forward, which is something you don't always see so much against Crusaders team. Even when they bring those reserves on, they've normally got that sort of ability to keep up what the starters have done before them. So all around, you just start to see some little cracks, maybe starting to see play, or some key areas where they're not as strong as they would be with their full strength. And I mean, every team is suffering massive injuries. It's quite a big talking point heading into the possibility of that Trans-Tasman competition that the New Zealand teams have, as they do with these derby games, beat each other to the point of breaking. And that's what's happened this season. It's almost like a survival of the fittest. Now we're getting down to that nitty-gritty end of the season, the last few rounds of the competition. Who's going to have the fittest and best team still going when you get to those finals and those chances at the end to win the competition? Anyone could get into that final if the Blues don't get up here, other things go the way, the Chiefs continue on their great form, there's still a chance that it won't be a Crusaders Blues final. And that would, like I say, 3 weeks ago would be just, you wouldn't have thought it. everyone was talking about, even we talked about in the preview, it's like this is going to be a Brumbies Reds Crusaders Blues final between two competitions, and thanks for coming, see you later. But yeah, maybe more so here in New Zealand, things have changed up a little bit. But how do you see this game actually going? Regardless, obviously we don't have the team's name yet because it is a Sunday matchup. But in terms of game plan for these two sides, how do you see the two teams trying to get the victory over the other, knowing the weaknesses that they have?
Well, that's why the Blues are just going to bash it up. That's what they do, right? And the ball doesn't get through Rieko Iwaini's hands, so the guys outside him again just don't get used, right? Let's be honest. So they're going to bash it up, and Rico's going to try and break on the outside. That's that's the Blues' plan.
Because he's a winger.
Because he's well, yeah. Admittedly, he at least played 13 all the way through age grade and minor 10. Whereas the Crusaders, look, if they've got Scott Barrett at 6 again, then look, they've just not got the mobility to play that wide game and to take advantage of that slow pack that the Blues are going to have, and they'll end up basically playing into the Blues' hands, having to bash it up through because they're just not mobile enough to get it round them, and that's the concern. I think the Crusaders one could end up playing into the Blues' hands. The Crusaders want to move that ball as much as possible. Get a Kiri Iwani, get some Satutu running around, get Patrick having to put the miles in if Patrick's back from injury. Again, leadership issues for the Blues. Then look, but if I say if Scott Barrett's at 6, they don't really have that the mobility to do it, so it could be closer than we expect. But look, 13 games on the bounce, I can't really see that changing.
The confidence is so small in the Blues. It just about can't see it. Hey, let's go on a positive here about the Blues. At least Rieko Iwani has finally learned how to put a ball down. We've seen it for a few weeks on her own now. He's actually scored tries and just dived on the ball like a normal, boring old rugby player. But you know what he's not done? He's not stuffed any up. And that's the positive about his career moving forward, whether we see him in a 13 or wherever we see him in a black jersey in the future as well. So that's always a plus. I always see him scoring tries, and it's like, that's it, Rieko. Don't care what happens with the Blues as long as you just dive normally and score tries. That is fine. So who are you going? With the heart of the away side, or like you say, continuation of that 13-game winning streak for the Crusaders?
Crusaders by 5.
Crusaders by 5. Hard to argue with that. I'm going to go a little bit more because I've done it all season long and all week long as well this week. Crusaders by 8. We'll continue on with that. And that is our final game, our Sunday matchup complete. Thinking about it though, hang on. Now you've gone Chiefs, you've gone Reds, you went Waratahs and the Crusaders. So a stat that they are banding around massively each weekend is that the home teams have just about lost every game throughout the season. You're picking the two home teams this week, and I'm doing the same thing. So we'll see if we can beat the stats heading into this weekend's round of Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Aotearoa. But Paul, any final thoughts as we wrap up this weekend's preview?
Absolutely. Look, join us straight after the final whistle for the Chiefs versus the Hurricanes. We'll have post-match reaction on our Facebook and YouTube channels, as well as Twitter as well. So do join us for post-match reaction to the Chiefs versus the Hurricanes straight after the final whistle.
There we go. Make sure you're there. And if I'm all action and ready, I might even join in if I watch the full game this weekend and not later on. That is it from us today. Thank you everyone for tuning and watching. Thanks for all the comments coming through as well. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Make sure you're there. But until then, thanks for watching.